Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Roots Chief Financial Officer Mona Kennedy is coming out of the pandemic with renewed appreciation for the company's built-in resilience. From the front lines to the head office, Roots company culture champions agility and values their people as their greatest asset. I sit down with Mona in this episode of the Voice of Retail podcast to talk in depth about how this and other strategies have propelled Roots through the past 18 months. Having assumed her position at Roots only a month before the pandemic hit North America, Mona has faced her baptism by fire with ingenuity, preparation, and determination in uncertain times, calling on both her personal experience with teamwork and professional experience at other iconic Canadian brands. Mona offers insight on her approach to retail in the pandemic and Roots beyond lockdown.
Being able to access the inventory that's, stuck at the stores has been critical for us because, we would ship all this inventory to stores and then the next week stores are closed, right? Yeah. So then what do you do with that inventory? And this most recent wave has been 2 months. So that's an entire season for us, right? So our ability to be able to access that inventory has been critical.
Let's listen in now. Mona, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining me. I'm so excited. I love the brand. I mean, as I kind of will talk about it is this household's uniform of choice, but pre-pandemic as well. Just love the brand and love everything about it. So it's really exciting for me, and I'm sure for the listeners to learn more about you and learn more about Roots and thoughts about that. So let's jump right in. Tell us about yourself, your personal professional journey. I see you have both Indigo and you've got food industries in the background, but tell us all about it. How did you get to where you are today and what do you do for Roots?
For sure. So I'm the CFO here at Roots. I've been here now for 1.5 years. I joined in January of last year. So just, a month and a half before the pandemic hit all retailers very hard. So I have to say, it's been an eventful and interesting year for sure. Okay. Which, we can kind of get into later. In terms of my journey, I've been at a number of iconic Canadian brands as part of my career. I started my career at Bombardier Aerospace, moved on to Maple Leaf Foods, then Indigo, and now, the ultimate iconic brand, Roots. So I feel like I've had a pretty good experience as Canadian companies are concerned.
Roots is a retail branding that needs absolutely no introduction, though I do have I've got people listening from around the world. And what I often find is we know of Roots, but we don't really know of Roots. In other words, how many stores, the scope and the scale, maybe a bit of the origin story. Could take us through that for a bit.
For sure. So Roots is a brand that has been around for nearly half a century. And, it's known for comfort, quality, and versatility around the world. We operate about 100 retail stores in North America, primarily in Canada, but a few in the US. And we ship to more than 60 countries worldwide through our website. We also have more than 100 partner-operated stores in Asia and sell our products through third-party retailers in Asia as well, online. We have a broad range of products designed for what we call, your everyday adventures, and they range from basically baby, toddler, kids, men, women, and leather products. So that is kind of, the scope of our business and how we operate.
And a big early adopter of e-commerce as well. And I have to tell you, I do retail tours, or I used to do retail tours in the before time. They'll begin again soon. And I always take people to your store at Yorkdale because it's got those iconic elements of the brand in the store, right? The original signs and different things like that. It's so well done. Sure. So it really is great. Now, just let me pull on a couple of threads a little bit. You operate across 100 brands in Asia. Is that like a franchisee system? When you talk about partners, what's that structure like?
Yeah, so we have a partner that we have been with for over a decade in Asia, and they operate over 100 stores, primarily in Taiwan, but also in China and Hong Kong as well.
Now, you also do some co-branded stuff. I was in different stores and I see co-brand. Is that a part of the merchandising strategy as well? Kind of extend the brand where it makes sense in partnerships?
Yeah, kind of partnering and co-branding has been part of Roots from the start. There are kind of many pictures and campaigns that we kind of see from many years ago where we have partnered with a lot of celebrities. And it's always been part of the brand and our heritage. And it's something that we continue to pursue.
So, as you said, you started good timing. You started a month just before the pandemic. So I'm sure you've had quite the ride joining a retailer just before. Of course, you were the retailer before with Indigo. Let's talk about the experience that you've had. I mean, as I said, in my house, certainly you had a bit of a tailwind. Roots was the uniform of choice. But on the other hand, hundreds of store closures. I mean, we're still dealing with it. We're talking here mid-June. We're still dealing with Ontario stores that are only 15% occupancy. Epic lines this past weekend. I saw at every store. But on the other hand, I'm like that one-armed economist joke. Like on the other hand, you've got a super, super strong e-commerce. You've got one of the top e-commerce leaders, James Connell, in the business. You got a new DTC warehouse. So how do all these ingredients come together? How have they come together for Roots during the past 18 months?
So I think how they've kind of all come together is the success that we've had over the past year. We've kind of gotten through this pandemic year with flying colors, but we've also been able to strengthen our fundamentals and have a company that is going to kind of come out on the other side much stronger. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of strong products. We've got a strong brand. We've got a loyal customer base and a flexible business model where we've been able to really adjust and pivot as government regulations changed as we were faced with new waves of COVID. We have a very strong omni-channel platform that has enabled us to be there for the customers regardless of how they want to shop. And I think, what's really important to keep in mind is that the customer has also been facing a lot of uncertainty and change on their end, right? So being there how they want to shop us has been kind of critical to our success. For example, during the holiday season, we were offering virtual shopping events online and FaceTiming with customers that really didn't feel comfortable shopping online and things of that nature. So really, we've been trying to be there for the customer however they want to shop us.
That last point's really interesting. I just did an interview for CTV News, and we were talking about live streaming. And as you probably know, thanks to your presence in the Asian market, that's very popular in China, right? That live stream. Right. Is that something that was popular? Is that something you can see the brand doing more of? And what we talked about on CTV was, there's so many ways to go. You could hire an influencer to do it, or you've got great associates that themselves can be the ambassador. But it's one of those things that doesn't come easy for everybody. Did you feel that was a good experiment, and is that something you could see the brand doing more of?
I think, we really liked the experiment and we saw some success. It's obviously very popular in Asia. And we actually did some live stream concert series as well during the pandemic, which were quite successful. So it's definitely something that we are going to test and continue to see how the customers react to. I think, in Asia, customers want to shop that way, right? So it's easier to kind of get off the ground. But here, I think people are a little bit more uncertain. So we'll just have to see, right? I think coming out of the pandemic, we'll just have to see how the customers are reacting. Do they want to still do these types of things, or are they really eager to go back to the store and touch and feel the product?
I mean, I guess the answer is probably going to be yes. I mean, this is one I want to follow up a little. I mean, you talked about establishing these fundamentals culturally within Roots. And you were new to Roots. You kind of, I'm sure, had a sense of the culture joining. But what kind of effort went in amongst yourselves and the leadership team to kind of keep that business going? I mean, the ups and downs and starts and stops. I mean, it's very hard on the people, very hard on the employees. What jumps out at you is kind of a couple of key successful things you did to keep everyone going in the same direction and post some great results.
A number of years ago, I was sitting on a jury, and it was a jury trial for a murder. And so I sat on this jury, and I was in a room with 12 people trying to kind of make a pretty critical decision about somebody's life, right, with incomplete information. And you just basically have to hit the ground running and learn how to work together very quickly. While this wasn't exactly the same, it felt a little bit like that for me. And I was new, our CEO was fairly new, and we didn't really have, neither one of us really understood kind of the team norms and the group norms and how they work together. So I would have to say for me, it was a little bit like that, was, what, we've got a big problem and together we just need to figure out quickly how to solve it and how to make decisions. We were lucky that the rest of the team had been here together for a while. They had, great ways of working together. But I think, the critical thing that we really needed to figure out was how do we make decisions very quickly with incomplete information. And I think the team did a great job of doing that. One of the main things that we did in that, in trying to do that was trying to come up with different scenarios and alternatives. So what would we do if this happened, or what would we do if that happened? And really go from there. And through that, we've kind of come together, and I would say we're working very smoothly together now.
Let's talk about e-commerce. So you've no doubt seen a huge lift in e-commerce. You had a new warehouse, DTC warehouse, so you're ready to go. How has the organization dealt with what is probably, Cyber Monday every day? I mean, those kind of volumes have been huge. What's been the best response? What have you been able to do to keep up?
I would say we've done a few things. I think firstly, we've got a very seasonal business, right? So we've got really big peaks during Cyber Monday and holiday, more than a lot of other retailers. So naturally, we have some incremental capacity that we can tap into when we face these peaks, and we know how to deal with them when we face the peaks. So I think that really helped us. Secondly, we've got one pool of inventory for our stores and e-commerce. So all of the inventory is in one place and can be tapped into, which is fantastic. And I think a lot of other retailers don't have that. And I think thirdly, we've got a true omni-channel platform. We can, we do in-store fulfillment. We fulfill from the DC. And through that, we've been able to access our inventory across our entire network and have been able to really operate under the Cyber Monday everyday demand curve, as you say it.
I talk often with my podcast partner, Steve Dennis from Remarkable Retail, about how important stores are. And he's always said that, stores are back, but they never went anywhere. I think they're a strategic advantage. You just mentioned, some of the orders that can be picked up almost right away as soon as ready, right? So you fulfill from the store and from a central DC. So best of both worlds, right?
That's right, absolutely, and from my CFO seat, being able to access the inventory that's stuck at the stores has been critical for us, because we would ship all this inventory to stores and then the next week stores are closed, right? So then what do you do with that inventory? And this most recent wave has been 2 months, so that's an entire season for us, right? So our ability to be able to access that inventory has been critical.
Stores are beginning to open up, thankfully. We're at, 15% Ontario, and across the country, stores are opening up. How do you expect the consumer or the demand to change? We kind of talked about it briefly, like live streaming. In other words, I see this, I was out in the weekend, I saw massive lines of people standing and wanting to go back into stores and resume our normal life. E-commerce, no doubt, has had a great acceleration, and many think that the e-commerce is artificially high, that once the stores open, it'll kind of ebb off a little bit. What's Roots' perspective on that?
What we've seen in the past year is that obviously e-commerce grows when stores are closed, and it moderates as the stores reopen. But we do believe that there has been a permanent shift to e-commerce as more people have become more comfortable. Like I personally, we've been doing click and collect for grocery for the past year, and I don't think I'll ever go back into a grocery store, right? So I think a lot of people have gotten used to shopping online. And we think that, the elevated e-commerce sales are going to continue. But at the same time, as you said, with apparel, customers do really want to go to stores and touch and feel the product. And that is really critical as well. But, at the end of the day, as I've kind of said a couple of times now, we're there how the customer wants to shop us. If they want to come to store, if they want to go online, if they want to buy online, pick up in store, buy in store, deliver to home, however they want to do it, we're able to kind of fulfill it. And we're ready for that. So I think that's what we kind of have going for us. And
even different payment options, right? You introduced an option to have multiple payments on the same basket size, just that more flexibility, yeah?
Exactly. And we implemented after pay this past year.
We'll be right back with my interview with Mona Kennedy from Roots right after this message. From the team that has taken thought leadership and community for retail marketers and direct-to-consumer brands to the next level with their Commerce Next conference series, get ready for Season 1 of the Conversations with Commerce Next podcast. Hosted by veteran retail e-commerce marketer and podcaster Michael LeBlanc, with co-hosts Veronica Sansev and Scott Silverman, and presented by Wonderkin, Conversations with Commerce Next gives voice to the e-commerce and digital marketing community like never before. You'll hear thought leadership with one-to-one interviews that will dive deep into marketing challenges, winning digital strategies, the latest research, technologies, and people behind one of the most dynamic industries in the world. Together we'll work to make sure as we emerge from the COVID era that you're ready to take on the new challenges and opportunities and help you thrive with insights and advice from industry leaders who have hands-on experience that you need to hear. Available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, all the major platforms where you enjoy your podcast today, with new episodes debuting every 2 weeks. Was that the first time you'd bought groceries or food online, or just you did a lot more?
We did a lot more. So no, I'm generally a very heavy e-commerce shopper, but with grocery, we just hadn't transitioned there. We would do it once in a while, but it wasn't really part of our routine. But now, honestly, I have not been in a grocery store for the past year. It's all been online.
Interesting.
But you know what? I'm one person that doesn't enjoy grocery shopping. So I think many people like touching their apples. Yeah. Me, on the other hand, I like just kind of pressing a button and they come to my house. So.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because it's also part of discovery. And when I've talked to the grocers, they enjoy the efficiency, but they do worry. It's hard to introduce new products on e-commerce sites. Right. So they do worry about that kind of browsing and impulse stuff, right? I mean, they do worry about that. But the good news is food e-commerce spins the flywheel of all e-commerce. Like once you're shopping for food, no compunction about shopping for other things. All right, let's talk about your tradecraft as a CFO. How are you balancing that? I've been hearing for months and months and months the challenges in supply chain. There's articles in the paper today about it. We've been talking about it for months. How do you balance, I need to secure inventory. I don't want to miss, I think there could be a big surge. The stockpile, so much money is in Canadians' bank accounts. We see good days ahead, but you're trying to make a forecast. I don't know. Retailers are looking at 2019 to give forecasts, and then you need to have liquidity issues. How do you balance all that? What's your perspective as a CFO in balancing the tradecraft of trying to figure all that out, all those moving parts all at the same time?
So I'll go into kind of like two things, which I've kind of mentioned so far. The first one is creating forecasts and scenarios. And, over the past year, my poor finance team has created hundreds and hundreds of forecasts and scenarios just to kind of say, what if this, what if that, right? And really testing their limits because it's not really that important to come up with the most precise forecast. What's important is to kind of know, what are the extremes of this forecast and at what point am I in trouble? So that's kind of what we've been doing from a financial perspective to say, what are all the various things that need to happen for us to require to do something else and making sure that we're ready for all of those various alternatives and scenarios, I think was really critical last year. I think it's become a lot easier this year as we start the year in a much stronger financial position and also with a lot more certainty. But last year, that was really a full-time job for the finance team.
It feels like, and I wonder if you would agree, that building agility into the organization now is almost, if not more important than building that kind of rigor around forecasting and analytics, because you just don't always know what's coming. We still don't know what's coming over the next 18 months. It sounds like that's the kind of emphasis and culture you want to build in your team. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of my second point is around light speed decision making and also being able to shift your position and not just like one or two people, right? You have to shift the entire organization. So making sure that even the company knows that when you're making a decision, this is not going to be a permanent decision and it's for sure changing. One thing that I kind of tell my team is I can assure you that whatever forecast we come up with is wrong, right? So we need to kind of just work around that and say, okay, if it goes this way, what do we do? If it goes the other way, what do we do?
Well, let's talk. I mean, you've shared many lessons for the listeners. You've been very generous. So any other lessons that you, the executive team, your people have learned that really going to help carry you through, learned in the COVID era that are going to be helpful in the post-COVID and whatever comes next?
I think, this isn't really a learning, but something that we knew, but it just kind of became a lot more important during this past year and a lot more prevalent, is that our people are our asset, right? Our people at the store, our people at the distribution center, they've been at the front line really doing everything that they can in this changing environment, with the support of our head office, transitioning to work from home overnight and adjusting to all the various changes. I think, our people are our asset. We need to invest in them and we need to make sure that they're happy. Not necessarily a learning, but, something that's just really top of mind for me. And then the second one is around resilience. I think it's really important to ensure that you create a culture of resilience. And we have a company that's been around for 50 years. It's been through many cycles, but, this one has been a tough one, right? And just through the resiliency that the team had built over the past 50 years, they were able to get through it. But it just continues to be more and more important as the environment is quite uncertain.
So I'm sure before you came to Roots, you had a few Roots products in your closet, as many, many, many Canadians do. But I'm also pretty confident you've got more Roots products than you had before you joined. I mean, I've got luggage, I got bags, I got coats, I got everything. What product do you love the most? What are you most excited about that you've seen coming that we don't know about? Or what's your next employee purchase of Roots?
I've been kind of joking with the team. I own every Banff bag that we've kind of
love those. I love those. Those are great bags.
It's an iconic product, and in this past year, we've come up with some really, really fun colors that really speak to me. So I bought a number of them over the past few months, and as I kind of just get excited about the possibility of potentially traveling sometime soon, so I kind of have the bag sitting in the corner and I watch them, just dreaming at the moment. So that's kind of the product that has really excited me over the past little while.
Right on. Well, I think we're all looking forward to traveling a little bit more and seeing friends and family and maybe some business colleagues. So listen, Mona, thanks so much for your time. It's great insight, snapshot into Roots and the Roots business. I wish you continued success and a great long run at Roots. And thanks again for being on the Voice of Retail podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating review, as it really helps us grow so that we continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of Emmy LeBlanc Company, Inc., and if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at emmyleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe, have a great week.